are 4,315,275,402 Alabama football podcasts on the internet. And now you get to ignore every single one. This is the Houndstooth Podcast. Real talk from real fans. We gump to a standard around here. Recapping the Alabama Crimson Tide and college football from around the SEC and across the nation. This is the Houndstooth Podcast. And here are your hosts, Bill Sylvie, Jessica Brand, John Henry, and Bo Ganora.
And good evening, everybody. How are you? It's good to see you. I am your happy, hairy, humble co-host, Bill Sylvie, right in the storm out in Central Florida. Let's give a big roll tide to Mr. John Henry. Bo Ganora.
Hey, Bill. How's it going?
Hey, I'm doing all right. And, of course, this merry band of miscreants would not be complete without
hear you, Bill.
The girl with the most, Miss Jessica Brand. You don't hear me? I'm right here, I promise. Can you hear me, Bo?
Yep, I hear you just fine.
All right. Jessica, can you hear us?
Very well, thank you.
Excellent. Okay, so John's having a little bit of technical difficulty, but we'll bring him back here in just a second. So, anyway. So what do you guys do the last couple of days? I've been a little bit busy.
Yeah, I bet you have.
Indeed.
Yeah, how many sandbags did you put out?
There were 10 in front of the garage, and I put down a liner of plastic in front of that because the driveway was really what gets the fullest, as it were, in terms of water and flooding. But we had a pond up front and a lake in the backyard, but that was the worst of it. A couple of trees in our green space behind the house fell down, but nothing near the house. But I clearly need to invest in a chainsaw and get that sorted out. But yeah, I did the long watch last night because I don't know about anybody else out there, but I suffer from hurricane insomnia. Anything from tropical storm up, I cannot sleep. I will putter around the house doing everything I can until or unless the power goes out.
Yeah, so not so much hurricanes, but, tornadoes. Yeah. Thunderstorms rolling in. It's like, oh, there's a tornado coming.
And I think, Jessica, the worst you face is shoveling the lawn or the walk, I guess, in a couple of months, right?
Yeah, if that, honestly, as the resident, it's kind of Yankee, but by location only, I like to say. So,
indeed, you are absolutely a Southern girl, and we wish you were here.
I wish I was there someday.
I think John's back. We want to see him.
I see him in the green room. Do you want to be on with camera, John? Because we can see you. Your camera's on.
Oh,
do we want to face
some clothes on?
So since you guys can hear, here's a quick mic check. Can you hear this?
Yeah.
Did you catch that? Okay. All right. Good. So, John, I'm going to add you. There he is, Mr. John Henry.
Ooh, nice, John. That's a nice chair behind you, John. I like that.
I forgot about that. Let's.
It is.
No, I have a face for radio.
And Ethan Allen back there.
Yeah, now it's got a nice houndstooth pattern on it. Yeah.
Well, it's no worse than I think.
My brother-in-law's rocking chair for his room when he was a baby, and I sort of.
Oh.
Because
I think
they were going to throw it away, and I'm like, you can't throw that away.
No. Good Lord, no. I think that bested my week 2. I clicked the wrong thing, and for a few seconds in the outro, everybody got a look at my my nerd bookshelf behind me. Yes, I'm a nerd, Everybody knows I just left a Dungeons and Dragons live stream to come here and talk football, but that's all good.
I mean, I figured out my nerd bookshelf has every work by Shakespeare and Poe. Like that's what I do in my spare time. So
yeah, I'm broadcasting from the
My
Nerd
heart.
Den tonight as well. So
Excellent.
Fortunately, my nerd bookshelf is in another room, but I have things from. I have a book called The Greek Way of Death that explains burial practices in ancient Greece. I have some other weird
happy
things.
note.
okay, John, you win.
well, we'll send them the others to Watery Grave. Let's do it.
Yes, let's send the others to a watery grave, because guess what, ladies and gentlemen? If you've been asleep for the last week, and I wouldn't blame you, we sank the Commodores. It was a good game. I'm really interested, and we'll go around the table, of course, with everybody, but I am really super interested in hearing Jess's thoughts, because as I recall in the Discord, you seemed disquiet about it, but we'll get to you. We'll get to you, and I want to hear your reasoning. I saw an Alabama that seemed to be firing on all cylinders. Now, despite the shellacking that we put on ULM the week before, there was a series that ULM put together that really, I think, was kind of a low tide moment. But I didn't see that out of Vandy, an in-conference, on paper, better team than ULM, and I think Alabama shut them down. Of course, Vandy's long national nightmare of not scoring anything on Alabama for 5,000 plus days is finally over. Not a touchdown, but a field goal. But I guess we can give the Brainiac school of the SEC that.
But team would have scored more.
Their baseball team, yeah. If they had brought their baseball team out, and
They may have scored more than 3.
Yeah. So I didn't see confusion on the defense, which was good. The thing that I really wanted to see, and Jessica and I may get into an argument over this, in which case she'll win, so I hope not. But I have been concerned all season about the left side of our line, about the left side of our offensive line. And I did not see the left side of our offensive line buckle once. And I saw them buckle time and again against Texas. I saw them buckle a few times against ULM. Yes, against ULM. The left side of our offensive line was doing their jobs. Dalcourt was doing his job. The offensive line looked anchored. They looked dug in. So that okay. I got like the early wins yesterday. I can sense that there is a torrent of discontent coming, but I look forward to it. But that's my kind of opening thoughts. So what do you got, John?
Well, let me start by saying there was a play from, I think, a couple of weeks ago where everybody was on Darian Dalcourt because on an outside zone play, he got blown up and pushed way back in the backfield. Not that it was ever going to affect the play because he was behind the play, but the guy bull rushed him. And I, believe it or not, out of curiosity and because I'm a nerd, I'm a football nerd specifically, I was reading an article the other day about zone blocking, and I immediately, once I got into the techniques, realized why he got blocked back into the backfield. He took a wrong step. That's all it was. He took a bucket step instead of taking a step play side, and the guy just bull rushed him, and he couldn't do anything about it. Nothing but physics. I'll let him go on that one. Take the right step next time, buddy. So I'm sure they worked on taking the right steps on and when he should take that bucket step in practice a little bit that next week. But my notes on this specific game, the offensive line played well. And honestly, looking at our rushing totals from this last week reminds me of the stats lines from Bear Bryant's wishbone days. We had 7 players reported rushing stats last week. 7.
Why, Mr. Henry, are you trying to seduce me? But please continue.
Keep it over there, buddy. But yeah, trust me, I get it. The offense took a lesson, believe it or not, from Indianapolis offenses from the Manning era. and they kept the receivers in the same positions. They didn't move the receivers around to the different positions a lot, thinking that would help them simplify so they could focus on the specific routes that those positions tend to run. And it seemed to pay off. And they were talking about it a little bit in the week where they said they think their receivers are moving around a little bit too much, and they thought it would help them, especially the younger players. Just do that position. Don't try to do them all. Just learn this position. And they all played a lot better, and they seem to be getting it down. I like the chemistry we're getting between him and our quarterback here. The defense was superb, especially once the secondary started fighting through blocks on wide receiver screens. We had a whole drive where we had problems with that. Will Anderson completely disrupted the offense for most of the game, and they did not have an answer. I think there are going to be a lot of teams that are not going to have an answer for Will Anderson this year, except run away from him.
Or cut block and knock him out for the season.
Considering where he plays on the line, that's probably going to get some people penalized. So they're probably going to cut back on that a little bit.
I would hope.
And my last note is Kool-Aid McKinstry is a revelation in the punt return game. It's like watching what's his name from the 90s back there?
Palmer, David Palmer.
David Palmer, the Deuce. Yeah. I mean, he's making some moves. You can tell he's got some confidence back there, and he's setting up his blockers, and he's scaring some people. And I'm not sure that we're going to see, once we get into conference play, there's going to be most people are going to kick away from him and kick it out of bounds somewhere, because he's scary.
Yeah, he runs like every time he catches a punt, he's going to score.
Yeah.
The other person it reminds me of is, and I hate to bring him up, Prime Time. He was a lot like that.
I was thinking the same thing. I was like, he kind of reminds me of Neon Dion back there. So,
if the shoe fits and cannot be thrown by a Florida player, Yeah.
Well, if the shoe fits, he did go to FSU. So.
Yeah. Fair enough.
Then it was a free shoe, right?
Exactly.
Yes. Okay. So, Bo.
Yes.
I'm saving Jess for last because I know she's going to get onto me for my ebullient over optimism about the O-line. So, Bo, you go. What did you see? What did you like?
It's hard to say what I liked because I liked everything except for two things.
Okay.
So, many people have said this is the first game that they have played all three phases, for all four quarters, and we didn't have a letdown when the two started subbing in, and then even the threes, and then the water boy and the tuba player, and it clicked. Everything was clicked, and I felt like the first three games of the season were just an extension of fall camp, because it was obvious to me that they were still trying to figure things out. Personnel packages, who's playing what position on the O-line, things like that. And, this game is like, okay, it's time to start playing, conference football. And the difference was dramatic. So that's all. I didn't have anything specific that stood out other than things seemed to click. And if they can play up to that potential that they have, then they're hosting a Golden Beer Tap, in January or maybe February by then. But
you mean C-3PO's leg?
Yeah, C-3PO's leg. That's true.
Okay, like having to wait to the end of the school day because you're going to get scolded by the teacher. All right, Jess, tear into me.
All right. Well, so okay. We didn't get to really see what this team could do on run blocking primarily when it was non-garbage time, because we consider the following. There's a lot of factors what we ran. So we ran RPO tagged or straight up all curls, those little dink routes that are short and sweet to the point 13 times against Vanderbilt, which is really a core fundamental process to get little short yards downfield that's really reminiscent of, wait for it, the early mid-2010 Patriots teams that O'Brien was an offensive coordinator for. So it makes sense. It wound up with 8 targets, which was the most of any look, followed by counter, because we did run a little bit. I was a little bit concerned that we ran stick as much as we did. Again, enough with the Y stick. But what I saw really was interesting was our average depth of target for Bryce Young was 11.3 yards downfield, which is 12.9 adjusted yards per attempt, basically. About a little bit over 61% success percent rate. If you look at those balloons articles on Robama Roll, that's pretty good. Only 13.9% were uncatchable, 2.8% interceptable, 19.4% explosive. Very happy with what the passing game did, even though it wasn't very fancy. Was not very happy with what I saw in the run game from the first team. And the pass game really was the primary focus. Really, because you think about the run blocking, there wasn't all that much. Again, it was a counter game, it was an outside game. You saw this a lot with Jamarian Miller, who I really, really was impressed with. Jamarian the librarian, we're going to call him. Like, I mean, my God, like, where do we start with him? So there's so many lyrics I can think of from that song that make a lot of sense. Like, you could say, and the volunteer hose brigademan. What can I say, my dear, to make it clear? Need you badly, badly, badly. You know, he was great. Like, but no, the offensive line was okay from what we saw. It was really basic stuff, which to an extent is good, right? Because Bill O'Brien, prior to the game around Thursday, I believe it was like a week ago, was saying, "Oh, we got to go tempo. We got to go tempo." It's one thing to say that; it's another thing to do it, even if it was basic. I wasn't impressed by the routes. That's not a slam on O'Brien as much as it is knowing your opponent. And the reason you go quick routes on them, not only because, face it, it's Vanderbilt number one, but number two, the fact that they run a big box. They always have. So you talk about the fact that they run with a rover, they run with 4 down linemen in their base. You want to be quick because your line, frankly, isn't as good as you would expect it to be from a normal offensive Alabama line. So why not use the script that Utah State used, that Monroe used, that you're going to start to use outside little curl packages and the checkdowns as primary reads? You don't need to go deep because, one, you don't need to show it, but number two, it goes against their type. Because, think about it. If you have more down linemen, you're going to have fewer linebackers, right? I mean, that's just how a 3-4, even if you add in like a nickel or whatever, that's just how personnel works. You can only have so many guys on the field. I was happy with play calling, but for an atypical reason. The line didn't show me anything that I didn't expect it to show me to. That's not a bad thing. The defensive line feasted. I was really, really happy with what I saw there, but the secondary was great as well. I don't think they got a lot of credit for really taking the downfield stuff away for a unit that for the past, like 2.5 years, honestly, has been questionable about how they've been communicating. We didn't see any of that. That looked good. I saw good lateral movement and lateral quickness from McKinstry in the return game. We bring that up. That was encouraging. I want to see a little bit more in really the outside game for rushing lanes, our boundary plays. That's where we made our bread and butter so many years with Damian Harris, with a little bit on Bo Scarborough. You talk about maybe not so much Ingram. You could say Henry to an extent. He was a big one-cut guy that could make your inside game an outside game, but primary like power by reads beyond the counter stuff, which was good, admittedly. But you saw what you wanted to see. It wasn't exemplary. It was a workman's effort. And, as someone who loves line play, love line play, that is a compliment. I was happy with it, but not encouraged by playing calling, but I didn't want to be.
Okay. Let me ask you just one more question, then we'll go on to high tide, low tide, and stats and so on. But I really want your reflection on this, and if this is something we need to go into more detail later. Tempo. I have been a huge critic of Bama's lack of tempo this season, snapping the ball with 3 seconds left on the clock. The defense has time to set, adjust, watch, reset, readjust if necessary. And yes, we've been winning, but in a team that we should have dominated, it didn't look good. They looked set to react. Against Vanderbilt, the times we went tempo, we were absolutely the most successful. And I'll throw that out to the entire table. It's a little off-brand for us, but everybody, but Jessica, specifically, I want to hear your thoughts.
Yeah, that's the thing, though. We didn't see as many taps to the helmet with the inside of the palms. Tap, tap, tap. Like,
Mhm.
because the reason you do that these days is because communication cuts off in the helmets for these guys with a few seconds on the play clock. So that means that they need to have internal communications. We didn't see that as much, and I just wonder down the line how much of that is really game plan opponent and not wanting to tip your hand. Because I think it was a clever game plan without saying too much, but it's not really something you really can expect to do against Arkansas. You look what Drew Sanders has done this year. Oh man, imagine him on this team this year. Anyway, though, it's not encouraging, it's not discouraging because the plan was so simple and so repetitive. It's like, hey, if you think about it like this, imagine Alabama here is a virus. Like, let's say it's a bad cold. Hey, we're going to be the germs and we're going to infect everybody. If you can't stop us, we're just going to repopulate over everybody over and over again. And that's what they did. They could just do it with curls. They could do it with counters. It was the same stuff over and over. But when you need to adjust, I don't know. I wasn't encouraged by that or discouraged by that. It was just that they couldn't beat it because they don't have the athletes to do it, honestly. And because, again, they play too heavy up front. Because, honestly, if you look at Lay's defensive line, by pre-snap alignment, they don't give too much away by shading. They really don't. And that similarities, I think there's a lot to us in that regard, pre-snap. So because we're kind of used to that, we can kind of adjust and beat it that way. I want to see it more against Arkansas, where they're targeting a very weak secondary. And here's what's interesting to me about Arkansas, because this kind of ties in because it's opposite but similar. You beat Vanderbilt on the outside with little curls and stuff like that. You're playing, frankly, one of the worst secondaries in college football. I don't even mean FBS. I mean, if you include FCS ranks in college football this week. The thing is, with the secondary that's bad, you got to air it out. You got to air it deep, man. So the line has to block to be able to do so. And Bill O'Brien's not been calling very deep balls on average. So something's got to give there. And I don't know what it's going to be. The fact we were able to run this quick enough, and it's kind of interesting to see hurry up, no huddle. Are we going to be able to see a rush offense with pace to go deep? I mean, Tua did it with Loxley in 2018. God knows the bomb squad. But you have to do it this week. You're not going to beat their line consistently like you would with Vanderbilt. The weakness is there, but I'm not sure the coaching will be.
Interesting. Thoughts on tempo, John, Bo?
So I've always felt like prior to this, not so much this past week, but prior to this past week's game, a lot of these, running the play clock down 3 seconds was more on Bryce, because I feel like they've given him more control over the offense than any other quarterback prior to him, including Tua. So he's learning, he's going through, he's making his adjustments. And he's taken up all of the play clock to do that. They didn't do that so much this past week because it was a different set of plays, like Jess was saying. So, again, that 3-week extension of fall camp. Because let's be honest, had they lost the Texas game, would that really have made any difference in the SEC this year? No, it would not have. And if Alabama wins the SEC with one loss to Texas, do you think they're not going to make the playoffs? So that first 3 games, I felt like there was still a lot of learning going on. So the lack of tempo didn't bother me as much because of that. I do like it when they run tempo, because every time they run 2 minutes, it's like bam, 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 score. Come on. It's like just do that in the middle of the game. Just a couple of times if you have to,
Right on. Big John, any thoughts? Tempo.
Well, you're not going to run it constantly. You run it in spots. You run it in certain situations in the game. You run it in certain situations during the drive. And you have to practice it, and all your guys have to be prepared to do it. And we've got a young wide receiver core, and we're still shuffling, and we're still young on the offensive line. It'll get there. We'll get there more. And honestly, we don't need to show it yet. Maybe we start showing it this week. We definitely need to start showing it next week.
Sure. Yeah, no, I agree. You don't want to burn a solid 2-minute drill against Vandy of all people. But you know what? You know what? And those are great thoughts, and I thank you all for kind of coloring outside the lines with me a little bit, because I know normally, we have our way, we have our thing that we do. But thank you all for kind of going off menu with me for a second there. But let's look at the tail of the tape, regardless of tempo or slow count, and look at how things went in the numbers. So Bama 34 to 9 of Vandy's first downs. Our third down efficiency 7 of 12 versus 1 of 13. Fourth, 0 for 1 for Vandy, 1 of 2 for us. Total yards 628 to 129. And it is just mind-boggling, as the philosopher said, that we put up 628 yards to 129ers and 115 yards of Vandy's were in the air. 400 of ours were in the air. We had 13 of 26 for Vandy, 30 of 43 for us on attempts to completions, averaging 4.4 yards for Vandy, 9.3 for us, no interceptions. Rushing, we were in beast mode on rushing, 228 yards, 34 attempts with an average of 6.7, 14 total yards for Vandy with 26 attempts, averaging half a yard. 6 for 36, still not in love with penalties. 6 for 36 for Vandy, 6 for 55 for us, and a turnover. That was that fumble on the run back. So those are our numbers. Because again, we're kind of going to a shortened number format, listeners, where I could go through the whole tape and we'd be here all night. This guy got a half a tackle. This guy got a half a tackle. This guy got no tackles. So we're just going to stick to the more truncated format. And I think we kind of colored over the lines a little bit with the intro with high tide, low tide, and elephant stomp. But we do look at those points. High tide is more of a philosophical thing. I know, what a big shocker. Bill's getting philosophical. High tide was seeing the long ball again. Yes, Bryce, you're allowed to throw it more than a yard past the scrimmage line. That is not a penalty offense. It was good to see that. Low tide, special teams looked a little sloppy. I think when Kool-Aid was handling the ball, yeah, absolutely. But there was a turnover and a couple of near turnovers on kickback return. I want to see that get cleaned up. Elephant stomp moment. Oh my God, without a doubt. Gibbs out there, just Gibbs turning on no clip mode for you computer gamers. Gibbs had no clip mode turned on, running through defenders, and it showed, and I loved it. So, Jess, high tide, low tide, elephant stomp.
High tide to me is Jamarian Miller. Came on to prove that, I love Jason McClellan, don't get me wrong, but the fact that you can open up another outside guy, which is really great, right? Because imagine putting these guys, and we don't run this enough ever, but put them in a split eye with Bryce, put Latu there, make that a jumbo package, put in Oots at fullback when he's healthy. You have a real unique 22 package that way. That'd be really nice to run on the goal line set. And then you can run a bootleg with it, because you'd expect the backs to the outside and the fullback would make you think they're running up the gut. Nope, it's a bootleg. That'd be a really cool package. But he gives you that option, though. He gives you the option to spread the field, which I think is really important for this team in goal line to go situations, where I don't think they've really been all the best, except when it's been garbage time. And frankly, I'm not going to be concerned about garbage time either way, but they've been good there. Okay. Low tide as McKinstry for sure. He doesn't feel like he's confident enough. And I know he has the ability. He's got lateral quickness. He's got the ability to turn on a dime. He's got to trust his ability to really hold on to the ball and make the moves. He's got the smarts. It just feels like he's down on himself for some reason psychologically. Yeah, reading into body language of athletes, maybe it's not the easiest thing to do in the world, but when you see something, you say something. Elephant stomp, you got a variety of moments here. I mean, what do we go with? Like, I want to focus a little bit on this low tide element too. It's not a big one. Again, it's garbage time, but it's it's the mid tide before, right in that weird area where low tide starts to smell. But Jalen Milroe does not have the mechanics to be a quarterback at this level right now. His release is really weird. It's long and it's got a lot of moving parts to it. It's not fluid. He's got to improve upon that. He's got the rushing ability. I don't doubt that he can improve upon it, but it's something that concerns me. When you talk about next year, when you're not getting Ty Simpson all that many snaps, it's a long thing, so it doesn't keep me up at night. But Elephant Stomp, man, the fact that we were able to execute simplicity at its best. Sometimes that's what's good about Alabama football, right? For a number of years, when we would say run the damn ball, because we know we could take, really, to paraphrase the Bear Bryant quote that Bum Phillips said, that we'll take ours and we'll beat theirs, or we could take theirs and beat them, that quote.
Yes.
But, we took the most simple thing, we ran it constantly, and we beat them with that. Like, it's not an individual moment, but it's a bunch of little elephant stomps. Like, it's one little toe on the ground, two little toes, pound, 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 pound the ground, over and over, can't stop it. And that's kind of fun to see, right? Because it's like, think about that. Like, a sibling rivalry of sorts, like think about when you're shooting the basketball with an older sibling who's obviously taller than you. They're going to have a better chance to make the ball in the basket because they're taller and they're more refined and they're older. And this is kind of what that reminded me of, because they had the advantage and they weren't afraid to not only use it, but show it and take advantage. I love it.
Right on. So, what do you think, Bo?
So my high tide, I got to give it to Gibbs. He's come in and as advertised, right? Dude is swifty, right? He's very dangerous catching the ball out of the backfield. He runs, his vision, I guess it's his vision that I'm most impressed with. So I'm going to give my high tide to Gibbs. Low tide is just McKinstry's fumble. That was that is the only low tide of the game, right? So I got to give it to them. And the elephant stomp is Mr. Anderson. He's just unstoppable. I forget which sack it was, but he just absolutely blew up the offensive lineman that was trying to stop him and wrapped up Vandy's QB. It was somewhere in, I want to say it was third quarter. I don't remember off the top of my head, but that's what I got.
Right on. And I think I feel like in the overall, just and it's been said before, but Anderson is cheat mode. He is pure cheat mode. He is IDDQD for this defense, and I'm here for it. So there's the breakdown for the first half, and as you know, if you've been following the show, we have a halftime trivia. Now, this was we got a call from the commissioner because there was an error, and of course, it's up to us to bring it back to you because, folks, we really only bring you the highest quality Alabama football sports talk on YouTube, and this mistake really it's on me. It's on me. I've got egg on my face over here. We called TJP for the halftime trivia win, which was, of course, the most scoring player at Alabama, which is Lee Tiffin. I dropped the ball. I gave that one to TJP, who got it right. I should point out, he got it right. But initially in the comments of the video, folks, you can leave comments under the video. Please leave us a like and a subscribe and a comment. It was actually Stephen Lacey got it right first. So shout out to TJP, but also shout out to Stephen Lacey for getting it right. Lee Tiffin, leading scorer at Alabama. And here is a wobbler. Anybody out there in the audience should be able to pick this up. This is, of course, referring to our current game. The trivia question, halftime trivia question. Alabama currently holds a 13-game winning streak over the Arkansas Razorbacks. What is Alabama's overall record against Arkansas. So that is this week's trivia question. Winner gets the shout out. If you don't know what it is, but it comes to you in a flash later in the week, you can leave it in the comments. First comment we get, you will get the flash. You will get the nod rather, and the shout out in next week's credits. So put your thinking caps on, which are hopefully houndstooth decorated, and let us know one more time. Alabama currently holds a 13-game win over the Arkansas Razorbacks. What is Alabama's overall record versus Arkansas? No fair Googling. You got to know it. This is an IQ test, folks. This is closed books. Closed books. So, TJP. So that is our trivia question. And so we're going to shift gears a little bit now that halftime is over, because we have some numbers to talk about with our scores for week 4.
All right.
And what we, hold up, John, because we have, Jess, do you have any no kisses and no hugs for us?
So that segment, we actually have some exciting news. That segment will be moved to the HOUNDSTOOTHPodcast.com in an article form for the future, because we think it's going to be easier if you see what I'm talking about. I can describe it all you want, but we're going to have some fun with that. So you'll be able to see what I'm talking about. It's almost like, because we are an Alabama podcast, we're going to have Helen Keller the ability to see. It's great.
It's going to be awesome, folks. And I wanted to give Jess a chance to make that announcement, because her no kisses, no hugs is such an essential part. And it's just, we're going high tech here, folks. Okay. We are making Nick Saban take the iPad. So we're going high tech. Jess's segment will move. We will be linking that down in the description of all the videos, but don't worry. Jessica's not going away. She'll still be here to chastise me for demanding tempo when we don't need it. Yes, you will get that at HOUNDSTOOTHPodcast.com, and you can check that out. You can check that out right over there. So, with that said, let's go around the conference with Big John.
Thank you, Bill. All right, well, let's start with Georgia, because they're still at the top of the heap for now. They played around with Kent State, 39-22. Pop Warner League All-Star Stetson Bennett was 27 of 36 for 272 yards and a pick and a rushing touchdown, while Brock Bowers had 2 catches for 77 yards and 2 touchdowns, 5 rushes for 60 yards, and then after the game, he watched everybody's jock straps for him. Nice guy. Does everything.
That's the quality of broadcast acumen we bring our audience here, folks. That is it's what we do best, really.
Snark and dad jokes? Yeah.
Yes.
I have a talent, I'm told. So this game left me with many questions, and not the least of which is, what the hell is a Golden Flash?
What surprised me was, I don't think I heard once that they mentioned Nick Saban and Kent State during the Georgia game. It's like everybody knows it, but we're not bringing it up, right?
I did read somewhere on Twitter that someone suggested that Nick Saban called Kent State to give them pointers, and that's why the game was so close. I wish I was kidding.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Man.
Yeah.
So Georgia,
I know Saban's defense. I have to look for that now. I mean, I'm not sure.
I mean, so he can go give people another team a pep talk during his week, and that is worth what, 10, 12 points against Georgia? Okay.
Yeah, I don't know. Georgia just looked like they were sleepwalking through that game, and
it is.
Well,
but there's
probably looking forward to this big battle they've got against Missouri and Columbia Saturday.
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
So
bringing Nick Saban into your lower tier FBS team to give them a pep talk is a good way to lose like your 3 stars with potential, because he'll launch into a recruiting drive halfway through that speech, right? Now, if you boys really want to be challenged, Height, okay, Nick, thank you. Applause for Coach Saban. That's right. Okay, Coach, you're done.
All right. Well, let's move along to Kentucky. First pick in the draft, Will Levis, was 18 of 26 for 303 yards and 4 touchdowns, along with minus 10 yards rushing on 9 carries and 5 sacks. All named first teamer Cavassier Smoke had 12 carries for 85 yards. Kicker Matt, not Mark Ruffalo, had a 49-yard field goal. And Kentucky somehow managed not to lose to the mighty Huskies of Northern Illinois. That was one of those games where I don't know. They had to be sleepwalking.
Yeah.
There was a lot of managed not to lose on Saturday.
Yeah, you know what? I had to fight to keep myself from just copy pasting that phrase in my what I'm talking about in my notes this week, because that happened a lot. But Kentucky maybe had a little bit of a legitimate excuse because they've got Ole Miss and the Grove coming up this week. And if anyone has any comments or other snide remarks, I would love to hear them.
I saw absolutely none of that game except the highlights. So, but yeah, I was a little surprised. What's going on, guys? So,
yeah, agreed. Moving on to Arkansas, they jumped out to a 14-0 lead against Texas A&M, but got thoroughly deflated. And this isn't even a Max Johnson joke, but they were completely deflated when Arkansas's KJ Jefferson fumbled trying to dive into the end zone over the pile from the 3.
Oh,
sorry, kid, you are not Walter Payton.
Bless his heart.
And that fumble was fumble picked up by Aggie defender Tyreek Chappell, who got as far as the 20 before being corralled. You see what I did there?
No, I see what you did there.
Aggies, and then handed it off by the Razorbacks. Sorry, and then he just kind of sneakily handed it off to Damani Richardson, who managed to get down the sidelines before anybody else realized he had the ball. And instead of it being 21-7, it was 14-13, and A&M would. Basically, they seized the momentum from that, and that just deflated Arkansas. And A&M would lead as much as 23-14, but Arkansas managed to come back and were down 23-21 when Cam Little missed a 42-yard field goal with a minute 30 left to preserve the loss.
Yeah.
And next up for Arkansas, there's a pig picking up in Fayetteville.
Yep, and A&M lost their one explosive receiver this for the season this week.
It was his knee that exploded, right?
Well, I mean, he broke his leg.
Anais Smith, yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
God.
If you remember a few years ago,
leg, that's right.
between 0 and
that
19
hurts even
because
more.
special teams.
Yeah. Yeah, so he broke his leg playing their, I guess they do like a football players versus the cadets intramural type game, and he broke his leg. He's out for the season. So
God love him.
Yeah,
how would they let their players do that?
I don't know. I mean, but hey, it's a tradition. So
yeah, and so is building gigantic piles of wood that would collapse and kill people.
Yeah.
Well, I know.
I say it was a smart tradition. It was a tradition.
It is a tradition. I know. I speak for all of us here on the staff. Like, I don't care what team you play for. I don't care how much we say we hate UT, we hate Auburn, etc. I don't care who you play for, what uniform you put on Saturday. I never want to see these young men injured under
I hate the laundry,
any
not
circumstances.
The kids. Never.
Yeah, precisely. So it is a tragedy, and we here at the Houndstooth wish him the best of luck in recovery, and get out there and lose to us again soon, son.
I'll tell you what, I accidentally broke a guy's arm playing intramurals, and I can still hear the bones crunch.
Oh, wow.
Ouch.
So yeah, you don't want that. You always hate to see it. Now, you like to see your guys limping off the field after the game. Dragging off the field.
Yeah.
Maybe crawling off the field, but you don't want to see him actually injured. I'm just thinking, who was that quarterback for LSU? Trying to crawl off the field.
It's just, yeah.
Mettenberger.
Yeah.
He's on
Mettenberger.
Alabama
Zach
staff
Mettenberger.
now. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, he got pummeled the last few minutes of that game. And that was good to watch. But yeah, after the game, was like, that guy, boy, he's going to need a nice bath.
That drove me up the wall because where were his comrades at? Why was his O-line not there immediately for him after that? But anyway, we can discuss
busy
history.
night blocking.
See,
Next. Yeah.
Remember at the end of the Texas game, you were helping Bijan up. I mean, that's the difference, right? Like, you
Yeah.
help you guys up. It's football. It might be a profession, it might be a living, but you're there playing the same game. You owe that to one another, I think.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah, you hit a guy as hard as you can, you knock him down, you help him up, and you say, good job, I'll be right back. That's what Bear Bryant always said.
Yeah.
So, next up for Texas A&M, by the way, Mississippi State in the House of Cowbell. And now, let's move on to Tennessee. Hendon, not TJ Hooker, went 22 of 28 for 349 yards and 2 touchdown passing, and added a rushing touchdown on 13 carries for 112 yards. That's a lot of offense for one player. As Tennessee went on to beat Florida 38-33. Florida's Anthony Richardson, that he actually was 24 of 44 for 453 yards and 2 touchdowns. So he kept him in the game with his arm and a pick, while running 17 times for 62 yards and 2 touchdowns. So both of those offenses look like they're just going to go through their quarterbacks for now. That's going to be tough to defend, but single point of failure is never a good thing. Not in my business anyway. Tennessee was up 17 with 7:55 to play in the game, but Florida came back and was throwing into the end zone on the last play of the game with a chance to win. Tie at that point, but Florida coach Bill Napier hopefully learned some lessons on when not to consult the go for 2 chart going forward.
Yeah.
Like I said, there were a bunch of games that teams managed to not lose, and that was one of them.
Yeah.
Yes, it was. Now, okay, so I did not see much of that game, but did they just not play defense?
Some, but Tennessee is back, y'all. Except half of Tennessee is back. The offense is back. The defense.
Yeah, the offense is back. Yes.
Yeah.
But I think. Excuse me. I think. I think Florida had made a good hire with Billy Napier. I really do. He's obviously adjusting.
For a first-year coach, he's doing pretty well.
Yeah.
Did I see what he did to prepare for this game in the show last week? Because I think it was outstanding. He was having them prepare by blaring Rocky Top, throwing golf balls, throwing mustard bottles on the practice field.
Yes,
that's perfect. Like, it's smart, right? Like, we laugh because it's funny, and it is. But what a great way to prepare for. Well, the perfect encapsulation of Tennessee volunteer culture, I think. So.
Yeah. Well, let's see. Coming up for Florida, they've got Eastern Washington at home. They moved their game to Sunday, don't forget. And Tennessee, they're off this week. They're at the Costco buying up all the mustard. Then after that, they've got LSU next week. So I expect to have mustard by the pallet come the third Saturday in October.
And by the way, UT fans know we will never let you live that down. Ever, ever, ever.
Yep. And the best we can do, the best we can offer at this point is you throw mustard at Florida and Florida throws shoes at you.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, they throw mustard because they can't catch up with us.
Oh, there it is.
Ooh.
A challenger appears. Gonna have to step your game up, John.
I don't know. That's a very dad joke. I think I'm pretty in tune with those. So, Ole Miss, Jackson Dart was 13 of 24 for 154 yards and 2 touchdowns. He also had 13 carries for 116 yards, while Quinshawn Judkins, sorry, let me do this right. Quinshawn Judkins ran 27 times for 140 yards and 2 touchdowns. in a 35-27 win over the Golden Hurricanes of Tulsa. I am going to stay far, far away from that, guys. I do not want Vox coming down on me. Ole Miss led 35-17 at the half, but would not score again. Tulsa was able to score another 10 points early in the fourth, and we were within a touchdown early in the fourth, but we're held at 26 yards and 3 punts the rest of the way. And next up for Ole Miss is Kentucky in the Grove.
That should be interesting.
Yes.
Yeah, that's. I'm actually.
That's going to be a very good game.
I still can't put my finger on Kentucky, and we don't know anything about Ole Miss because they haven't played anybody yet. So,
yeah.
Actually, we do know a little something about Ole Miss. They've got a good running game, but Jackson Dart is not going to beat you with his arm.
No, that's true.
That's Ole Miss.
You can know he's a Pac-12 kid, honestly, with the way he throws it. Like, he's anticipating having these easy little seams and shit. Like, granted, I mean, the scheme's pretty good because it is Lane. But, like, that's not there in the SEC. You need to be patient yet quick. It is such a fine needle to thread. Because you go from the Pac-12, where I could fit my entire fat belly through it pretty handily, where you go to the SEC and it's an actual needle. Big difference.
Yeah.
Yes. It is a big difference. I mean, yeah. You're throwing to wide open gaps, or you're throwing with a guy draped over you and got his hands on you.
With hybrid coverage. Yeah.
Can I just interject real quick and remind everyone exactly how much trouble we would be if Lane could really recruit?
Yeah, true.
Let that terrifying thought sink in for a minute. If Lane could really, really, really recruit.
He will his next job. Oxford isn't appealing to kids. It just isn't. Like, honestly, yeah. I think he's learned so much that FAU, he did relatively well there by recruiting specifically. Oxford isn't it. That's just such a hard program to do it in. I mean, think about it. They've had, I believe, 3 double-digit wins in the entire school's history. I mean, for seasons, I should say. 10 or more wins. 3.
Oh, okay. I was going to say, wait a minute.
Yeah.
So I'm thinking of what's available now. I can't imagine that a coach of his caliber would want to go to Auburn after what they've done to their last couple of coaches.
Yeah,
but if Texas A&M gets open, that might be a problem.
I could see that happening. That makes a lot. You know, the thing is, too, those Aggies like to be very loud. And if one thing I know about Lane Kiffin and his play style, his calling, and who he is, he matches that pretty darn well. Like,
he does. He's not, well, one thing's for sure. He's not moving laterally. He's not going to some sedate school again, like USF or whatever, wherever he was here in Florida. Lane's going places, guys, and I've gotten heat for saying this. I've gotten flack for this, but I'm going to say it now at the risk of losing our fragile, small YouTube viewer audience here. Hashtag maybe Lane. Just saying. Just think
to mature a little bit more, I think, before he takes that job. But
I'm sorry, what?
It's going to be golden.
He needs to mature a little bit more before he thinks about taking an Alabama job.
Oh, God.
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
Sure, of course. But
he's I think he'd be a good fit at Texas A&M. And
you don't think he would be mature enough by 2035 when Saban retires?
I don't know if he would be mature enough by 2075. I mean, you know, he's a good coach, but he's a big kid, is what he is. I understand that, and that just he's a good coach, but I would be hard pressed to send my kid to let him to be developed under Lane Kiffin, to be honest.
All right. I'll
just my 2 cents as the dad of a 5-year-old.
Yeah. No, I feel you.
So, all right, now let's talk a minute about Alabama, Missouri, guys. Or sorry, Auburn, Missouri.
Okay.
I'm losing it.
Yeah.
So Auburn beat Missouri in a game for the ages.
Wrong.
Sorry.
Fact check. Not true.
That did not come
Did
out
they
right.
though? Did anyone win that game?
No.
Parsons' job security.
I misspoke. Bad verbiage. I meant to say Auburn beat Missouri in a game played by the aged. That's what I meant to say.
See, you keep using this word beat and won.
And played.
I don't think they mean what you think they mean. Auburn managed to not lose that ball game.
Yeah. Well,
That was the only thing that they accomplished on that day was that they managed to not lose the ball game.
Well, here's the thing, though. Auburn is a triple threat. They can't run, they can't pass, and they can't kick field goals. So that makes them dangerous. Missouri is somehow worse, even though they kind of outplayed Auburn. And when I mean kind of outplayed, they had 312 yards of total offense versus 217 yards of total offense.
Hey.
The only way they did not outplay Auburn is they had an interception that led to an Auburn touchdown, and then that idiotic fumble at the end of the game. There was no reason to stick that ball out there.
Yeah.
And this game was reminiscent of that infamous 3-2 game.
Very much so.
State.
Yeah.
And this is exactly the kind of Auburn team that might replicate that sometime this season.
They might.
And at one point in this game, there were 12 punts in a row, and more than half of them were 3 and out.
Yeah.
All you can say is misery loves company.
This was like watching soccer. It was.
We were jokingly calling it the Misery Bowl before the game started, but they lived up to that. That literally was the Misery Bowl.
All I know is the worst team playing has a tiger for a mascot, and they lost.
Yeah.
You know how CBS has that tagline
for
now? The best game from the best conference? This is more like the worst game from the best conference. Like, not just because Auburn was in it, but because Auburn was in it. If you get my drift, like, oh.
So right now we've got 4 teams sitting at the bottom of the SEC. We've got Auburn, Missouri, South Carolina, and Vandy. And for the life of me, I cannot rank them.
Yeah, just pick them out of a hat. I would put Vandy above Auburn and Missouri.
I would absolutely. I would
probably put South Carolina. How's South Carolina doing? They're playing right now.
Well, they're playing South Carolina State.
I know.
And it was halftime. It was 22-0.
Okay. So SC Vandy pick, and then Auburn Missouri. Just pick one. I think there's 2 tiers there.
I don't know. I don't know. If both of those, if either Missouri, they're not making a bowl. Auburn, they're gonna have to get lucky to make a bowl.
They'll be lucky to make the Birmingham Bowl. Honestly.
Auburn's going to find out a little bit more because Auburn's got LSU at home this week and Missouri's got Georgia at home. Well, we're going to learn how bad they can get their ass beat. That's what we're going to learn. Sorry.
I was just going to say,
be negative.
Auburn is going to be lucky to make the Iron Bowl this year, guys. Come on.
Their coach is going to be lucky to make the Iron Bowl. That's for sure.
I feel bad for their coach. I mean, it's like he I swear I watched that game. All right, I watched that Auburn Missouri game for some reason. I guess I don't know, but I put myself through that, and I'm like, nobody wants to be there. The players don't want to be there. The coaches don't want to be there. Dude is trying to get himself a buyout so he can go back to Idaho. And so
I have never seen a coach that was more pre-fired in my life. He was fired from the day he got on campus.
Yeah.
I can't think of a guy. Even like I can't think of a guy.
No, I just can't believe it took 4 overtimes last year. Like, what?
Yeah. It made for gripping football, at least.
It did.
Auburn's got a pretty good defense. They just have no offense.
Papau is a nice weapon, honestly, on that side of the ball. They have a lot of good pieces, honestly, that don't get recognized because they have their tops and then they have their bottoms. Like, imagine Auburn football is a 7-layer dip. You have the cheese on top, but the rest of it is actually fake food that you can't actually eat.
Yeah.
You have to warn me before you say something like that.
But it's like having a garage full of performance parts and a cracked engine block.
Yeah.
It's like I got a Holly 4-barrel, and I've got a Fram alternator, and I've got a performance water pump. Yeah, what do you got? A cracked slant 6 318. Oh,
in a 1972 1974 Cutlass with a warped frame.
yeah. Auburn, I am promoting you or demoting you, as the case may be, to New Tennessee.
Ooh.
Auburn, you are now Tennessee, as Tennessee was.
I thought you were going to demote him to like Bobcat or something.
No.
It's not like a full-size tiger, just a
Tiger color, yeah.
Well,
a midget tiger. Oh,
Like
now
a
let's
really
say that
fat
word.
Maine Coon. That's it. They're a really fat Maine Coon.
A Maine Coon.
I haven't seen tigers this abused since the birth of what's his name from
Joe Exotic.
Joe from Joe. Yeah, I haven't seen tigers this abused since the birth of Joe Exotic.
Oh, okay. Maybe we should just move on from.
Let's move on.
I like this
It's
entire
too
segment
easy.
about Auburn burning. Like, it's great.
Getting Auburn is never not fun, but yeah, we do actually have a show, folks. I promise.
I've been told. All right. Well, Mississippi State rebounded from their loss with a 45-14 win over Bowling Green. Will Rogers was 39 of 50 with 409 yards and 6 touchdowns and wins a cowbell-shaped ice pack for his shoulder.
So my question is, how many rushing yards did Mississippi State have?
I think it was like 48.
Okay, all right, so typical. Okay,
Yeah.
all right.
And next they have Texas A&M at home. LSU, which is getting ranked really high in the SP+. They held New Mexico to 88 yards of total offense to win 38-0. Quarterback Jaden Daniels was 24 of 29 for 279 yards and had 9 carries for 37 yards in 2.5 quarters. Garrett Nussmeier, yes, that is Doug's son, went 9-10 for 135 yards and a touchdown the rest of the way. So Auburn or LSU, I don't know about them yet. S&P Plus really likes them, but I don't know. We'll see. They have some talent, but they lost a lot.
Yeah, they did. Hey, does what's his name played? Scored a touchdown yet for LSU?
Which one?
Butte.
You know the guy.
Oh,
Doesn't
Keishon Butte. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, Brian
He hasn't
Thomas
been
has
back on the
really
field,
emerged
has
though
he?
as number one. Yeah.
Okay.
So next up, they have Auburn and Jordan-Hare. And South Carolina, they beat the Charlotte 49ers. Why they're the 49ers, I don't know. But they beat Charlotte 56-20. Spencer Rattler was at his consistently mediocre self, going 17-23 for 187 yards. Marshawn Lloyd, not Lynch, had 15 carries for 169 yards and 3 touchdowns. And South Carolina, they're playing SC State right now. They're comfortably ahead. They're playing them tonight at home, and they're going to be halfway to bowl eligibility after tonight. Now, they have to beat Missouri, Vanderbilt, and one of Kentucky, Florida, Tennessee, or Clemson to get to bowl eligibility.
Mm,
So I think they're going to be staying home this year.
yeah.
Just
I
a quick
mean-
note on the 49ers thing. This is kind of a sad reason that it is the 49ers. So, the university's predecessor, which is the Charlotte Center of the University of North Carolina, or CCUNC, was saved by being shut down by the state in 1949 by Bonnie Cone when it became Charlotte College. So because they were saved in 49, that's why they're 49ers. It's not like, San Francisco's NFL team, but because they didn't get closed.
So this is not a reference to Sutter's Mill, is what you're
Okay.
saying. Okay.
Well,
And
good.
finally, Vanderbilt, which we've talked about a little bit, they are convalescing this week. So good for them. They can rest up. They
Yes.
can get some IVs.
They have to
fluids.
power wash the vinyl siding on their stadium to get ready for the next week.
Now, before you launch into your next segment, John, I owe you an apology because, you know what? I was up for 24 hours hurricane watching last night. I plead physical exhaustion. I did get a power nap this afternoon though. But I stepped on you and I did not give you high tide, low tide, and elephant stomp props. So, what do you got? What was your this past week?
Well, it's a little bit derivative, but I'll tell you what. My high tide was Jameer Gibbs, but I have two specific plays on the same drive.
Okay.
The first one was a 26-yard catch, and then a couple plays later, he had a 7-yard touchdown catch. On both plays, he broke multiple tackles and used the circle button to spin move a few guys to make them look foolish. He showed a lot of toughness and grit on those plays because he was not going down on first contact.
He's swifty.
I really like this guy. I really do. I mean, he bursts through holes and he runs right through arm tackles. And if you think you've got him corralled, he's going to make a move on you. He's a good one. I like what I've seen so far. Is he a junior or senior this year?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure he's a senior, right?
Who's this again? I'm sorry.
Jameer Gibbs.
Gibbs. Does he have another year left?
He's a true junior, so theoretically.
Okay, theoretically, yeah.
Okay, so if he's going to show enough to go pro if he wants. It's going to be all about whether he wants to stay and show a little more and, have a little more college experience and maybe raise his draft grade a little bit. He's my high tide. My low tide is on Vandy's field goal drive. We seem to suddenly forget how to handle wide receiver screens. We were a little slow to react. We were not running through and blocks like I know they know how to do because I've seen them do it. But Vandy was running a lot of scripted wide receiver and running back screens out to the wide side, trying to get blocks and get to the edge. And they got some yards out of it, but we adjusted after that and shut that down. That was really the best success they had the whole night. After that, they had very little success in doing anything. So that was my low tide. It's weird that the defense had my low tide, but I'm picking nits at this point.
You go with your gut, man. That's what we're all about that. Go with your gut.
So my elephant stomp was Will Anderson's tackle on fourth down. I think we've all referred to it. That was a fourth down play where they were running a zone read. Quarterback kept it with the option to throw to the tight end who was coming across, faking a block on him, and he shrugged that guy and just went and made a very athletic tackle. I mean, that was a tough tackle for anybody to make, and he made a very athletic play there. And the entire defense played their assignment well on that play. And so that's my elephant stomp.
Right on. And again, I apologize. Things were moving so briskly and I am so punchy that, but usually we make much worse errors, folks. So don't go away thinking that was the worst that I can do. But anyway,
that's okay. At least nobody has said booger.
Oh,
man.
We're gonna. Oh, Mrs. Carlson's gonna come down here and yell at us.
Yeah.
And if you got that reference, you should probably take a couple of a leave for a bad back right now.
And make sure you take your Geritol every day.
Yes, indeed. So let's put away the sports page and switch over to the finances, or do what I do and just read them together. Because once again,
before you do that, Bill, can we?
Before I do that, you've
forgotten the top 10. I know we took a good long time to do the SEC, but
I did. It just kind of blurred together. Thank you.
Yes, it did.
Once again, John. This is why I have a good staff, because I do stuff like that.
Staff. He said staff. All right. Here, I'll make it quick for you. There's really only about 5 of the top 10 that we haven't covered already. So we know Georgia's is number 1. Alabama's number 2. We know what happened with them this weekend. Number 3, Ohio State. They played Wisconsin this weekend, had jumped out to a 28-0 lead and cruised to a 52-21 win over Wisconsin. C.J. Stroud went 17 for 27 for 281 yards, 5 touchdowns, but he had a pick. And the Buckeyes had 100-yard rushing days from Travion Henderson and Mayan Williams. One had 121 yards and the other had 101 yards rushing. Badger running back Braylon Allen had 23 carries for 165 yards and a touchdown, but quarterback Graham, not Fred Mertz, was 11 for 20 for only 94 yards with a TD and a pick. And Ohio State next week is resting at home against Rutgers. Number 4, Michigan. So Maryland kick returner Ty Felton fumbled the opening kickoff, and Michigan scored on a 10-yard pass on the next play. And Leah threw 2 interceptions on the day. I still like him. I'm still rooting for him, but he threw 2 interceptions on the day. But Michigan was still a recovered onside kick away from losing this game, winning 34-27. J.J. McCarthy was 18 to 26 for 220 yards and 2 touchdowns. And Blake Corum ran 30 times for 243 yards and 2 touchdowns. Tagovailoa was 20 for 30 for 207 and a touchdown before being benched after a second pick in the fourth quarter. Billy Edwards Jr. went 5 for 9 for 62 yards and a touchdown taken over for him. Maryland was able to pull within 7 after that touchdown with 45 seconds left, but couldn't get the onside kick. So Michigan struggled a little bit with Maryland, which I'm surprised. I wasn't expecting a whole lot out of Maryland.
Yeah, that surprised me as well.
And next up for Michigan is Iowa and Iowa City. All right, number 5, Clemson. They almost Clemsoned. They scraped by Wake Forest 51-45 in double overtime.
The Clemsoning was palpable.
Oh,
yes, it was.
I thought it was coming. They were leading. They were winning by 7. They got tied up, and they went up by a field goal until B.T. Potter for Clemson kicked the 52-yard field goal with 4 minutes left in regulation. Then Wake was driving, but Clemson's D stiffened, and got a tackle for loss and a sack. And then Wake punted on 4th and 5 at midfield with 39 seconds left. Wake then proceeded to lose in double overtime. I'm not sure about that decision personally.
Yeah, I did. Questionable.
Yeah.
But
they
listen,
get a first down there, they can go on and kick a winning field goal.
Listen, Clemson, you just managed to not lose.
I mean, they're facing NC State this upcoming week. Talk about a team that really shouldn't be ranked anywhere near that high. Like, that is a team that has gone absolutely nowhere and has a resume the size of Kansas's. NC State, to me, is number 27 by what I use on ranking system. Number 61 by offense, and admittedly, it's solid defense at number 10, but this is going to be a struggle ACC build up as an elite game, and more evidence to why the SEC is a superior conference, but I digress.
So where do you have Wake ranked? Or do you?
Oh, I'm sorry. Where do I have Wake?
Yeah.
Bear with me a second here. Just putting this in my sheet. I have Wake Forest at 40. So I'm not big on the ACC because I weight basically who these teams have played, who other teams have played. So I use kind of a transitive property garbage time, like a bunch of different factors. Have their offense rated. I have their offense rated as 10, and their defense is 82. Wake is, I think, a very boom bust team. Honestly, we see a lot more in college basketball. Teams that can shoot a lot but give it right back on the other end. I'm not too big on them either, but
This is the kind of thing that Clemson does. They will go against a team like this that are sort of ranked, but everybody knows they're not really worthy of the ranking. Then they'll go barely beat them, and then they'll get by who they need to get by, and by the end of the year, they're brimming with confidence and get to the playoffs.
They're an Applebee's. They are what they say they are and no more.
Can I just say okay, this is a little pie in the sky, but I would like to hear everyone's input on this. I know we're the Houndstooth podcast, not the Auburn with a Lake podcast, but I do want a little bit, just a brief bit of input, just a few seconds thought. Did what?
Did
Dabo losing a couple of season openers he should have won a couple of years ago? Did that break him? Has he never been able to get over that mental block and get his team back in a championship mode again? Or am I just overthinking it and he's not that good of a coach, period?
He fancies himself more of a Gene Stallings than an Nick Saban. And he's our friends across the pond would say he's bloody minded. He is one of the most stubborn people you will ever meet in your life, and he's going to stick to his gun and do what he does no matter what. In this case, his bloody mindedness is making him not adjust to some things.
Yeah,
and he's going to if you're going to look at their roster, there are a lot of guys named Justin and Jared that are white guys from the area that are getting scholarships based on quote unquote character.
And
he likes that they play hard.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of coaches' kids and ex-Alabama player kids on the team.
Yeah. Clemson is overrated. The only reason they're rated where they are is because they were overrated when they started rating them, and that's why.
They have a good defensive line, but I mentioned this on the podcast a few weeks ago. It bears repeating. They were the only Power 5 school not to have any incoming transfers from last season to this.
That's on purpose.
Totally.
That's a Dabo thing. So
it is. They could get good transfers if they didn't have someone stuck in the mud as Dabo was.
I had a football coach in high school that was a lot like him, and it does. I mean, he's going to do what he's going to do, and no matter how many times he loses, it's not going to change his mind that he's right. And if someone in administration tries to force him to do something, he will do just the opposite twice and take pictures just to show you who's boss. Yeah. It's that I'm trying to explain the attitude. I probably can't do it without using lots of words that are going to be entirely inappropriate for this podcast.
But the point is, it's not just me then.
No, it's definitely not just you.
I mean, come on. What did he come out in 2017 and just drop a stinker, just an absolute should have been blowout to Syracuse? And I just don't think he's been the same since. Or maybe he has been the same since, and that's the problem.
I think the problem is generational quarterback talent. Right, because you can be a very good coach, and I think Dabo is a very good coach. But what would make a very good coach excellent in this day and age, especially, is guys like Watson, guys like Lawrence. You don't do it with Uiagalelei. You don't do it with Kelly Bryant. You don't do it with these middling guys. I mean, consistently, that's what he's dealing with right now, and the inability to change, and it's stunning to see this, and I think it's what won them in 2018. Because do you really think if they stick with Kelly Bryant, do you think they win that championship? No freaking chance.
Nope.
But that's just it.
He thinks Ben Boulware is his model for what his football players ought to be.
Yeah.
And I mean, that guy is overachieved, but you're going to find very, very few guys like that who are going to be able to actually perform that way. It's he's trying to do the Bear Bryant tweeners thing, but you can't do that anymore.
You can't
we don't have the depth to do it.
You can't be just lucky.
No, and you can't run them till they die anymore either. Or like Bear Bryant said, the human body is an amazing thing. You'll always pass out before you die.
I mean, usually taking up space is the last skill to go. So
yeah. All right, so let's finish this out. We've only got a couple more. So next for Clemson is NC State at home by the lake. USC. USC quarterback Take a Chance Nolan threw 4 picks on 17 of 29 passing, which led to 2 USC scores. And USC struggled past the Beavers 17-14. USC, by the way, now has 11 interceptions on the year by 8 different players.
Can we stop with a narrative that USC is going to do anything in the playoffs?
If they get there.
If they can even get there. What I'm saying is they're pretty good on the back end. That's what I'm saying.
That's what she said.
They're opportunistic on the back end.
Did I really
three of those, 4 of those interceptions are by 3 linebackers and a defensive end. So,
what I find interesting, this is a perfect transition from Dabo to USC. I mean, USC had like more guys than you can start on both sides of the ball. Well, sorry, special teams, but most primary sides of the ball incoming this year, and people are wondering how they're going to do. Don't get me wrong. They're not a CFP team as it stands with 4 teams. But it's kind of interesting to show that model can be successful with a very good coach. Granted, and I mean this is a hell of a compliment to Lincoln Riley, one who runs very limited plays but runs them very efficiently. I had a guide somewhere of always offensive plays based upon his hand signals. I need to try to find that again. But simplicity can sometimes work. I mean, it's back to the Bama game plan again, another parallel across what's been going on. But you can get transfers, and it can work for you, especially if you are at least a very good coach, which Dabo is. And I would say Riley's a step above that, at least offensively. He's running quarters defensively a lot of times. Not so big on that. But, I mean, they're a reasonable New Year's Six team. They should be fun to see in the Rose Bowl, I would think, because I think they're going to face, honestly, Minnesota in the Rose Bowl. That'll be a fun game. So.
That will be a fun game. I will take time out of the day to watch that.
I think Minnesota kind of kill them at this point. But that would be fun to watch. All right, so we know number 7 in Kentucky, and number 8 Tennessee, and number 9 Oklahoma State did not play this week, but they are playing Baylor and Waco, which is going to be an interesting game this weekend. And to wrap it up, number 10 NC State. Quarterback Devin Leary threw a 75-yard touchdown pass to Thayer Thomas. Sounds like I'm lisping, doesn't it? On the first play of the game. And the Wolfpack D kept the Huskies out of the end zone until there were 2 minutes left in the game to handle UConn, 41-10. Leary was 32 of 44 for 320 yards, 4 touchdowns, and a pick, while the defense held UConn to 10 receptions and 39 yards passing on 15 attempts and 160 yards of total offense. And, of course, we know that they are playing Clemson by the lake this weekend.
If you've beaten UConn, though, have you really done anything?
You've played a game. You've had a scrimmage.
Of the many football games that was played this last Saturday, NC State UConn was one of them.
I'm just a little hurt that nobody got my On Golden Pond reference in that.
You bring them so fast, though, John. It's like asking me what my favorite bite of a slice of pizza is. My gosh,
it's the stuffed crust.
Exactly. All right. And now, in my ongoing attempt to prove to you guys that I don't have some kind of brain injury, we're going to go ahead and jump right over to Big John's Buy, Sell, Hold segment, where we analyze football teams as if they were stocks to be picked and decide whether or not you, as a good consumer, should buy them. Should you sell them off in a frenzy, or should you hold them conservatively? So back over to our financial desk and our leading stock guy, Big John.
Thank you once again, Bill. So I'm not gonna. There's nothing new for the first half of this. So we're just gonna say Georgia number 1. Yeah. What do you got? We'll start with you, Bill.
Oh, me on the hot seat. I'm holding them. I got to be honest. I'm not buying. Let me see what they do when they bounce back from a Wake Forest game that should not have played out like that.
Georgia? Wake Forest? What?
No, not. I'm sorry, not. Jesus. Kent State. Yeah. Again,
Yeah,
Yes,
same.
remember they
24
almost
hours, no sleep.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah,
I'm agreeing with Will. I'll just hold what I got.
all right, Jess, what do you think?
So who's this again? Sorry,
Georgia.
This is Georgia at number 1.
Georgia number one. Yeah, it's close though. Honestly, I mean the top three, and it's only top three this year, is close. It's Georgia, Alabama, Ohio State. That's my order. You couldn't go wrong with any of them. I do think that once we start unloading the playbook, and by golly, you better do it this frickin' week. It's now or never.
Mhm.
So, I buy Georgia at 1. I think you could see the same thing happen in Atlanta as it did last year. It would not surprise me.
Fair enough. And you know what's
Harsh
coming at
fair.
what's coming with the number 2? That's Alabama.
Yeah,
I feel good about it. I'm buying Alabama.
Yeah, same. I'll buy Alabama too. I think they're better than Georgia this year. I think they're better overall than Georgia this year.
I think the defense is better overall. I need to see more maturity out of the offense and more physicality from the offensive line. But they're up there. And Jess, what do you think?
Who's the other one? I'm sorry.
Alabama number 2.
Yeah, Alabama too. I have them a little bit behind Georgia. It's not much. It really isn't. I could easily see this change week over week. Now that we're actually starting to get into the meat of the schedule. Because in fairness to Georgia, they have played a tougher schedule to this point. But this is where you make your meadow and you set yourself apart. So
Would that
buy
be
with
considered a
upside.
buy then?
Yeah.
All right. So here's where we're probably going to start diverging. And let me just tell you that my methodology is I am not changing this until something makes me change this. Metrics aren't going to necessarily make me change this. So right now, Michigan beat Ohio State last year, and they physically beat them last year. And they're both good this year until I see something that is going to make me change my mind. And that's going to end up being one of them losing or they face each other. That right now I've got Michigan at number 3.
Yeah, so if I had Michigan at 3, I would sell that because I'm pretty sure that's the peak, right? That's the top of the market for Michigan. I don't think they're as good as Ohio State this year.
Okay.
Oh,
Jess?
That's a slight sell. I have them as 4, but I totally get where you're coming from too. I don't trust, and I never have for a long time, really since Tressel was coaching them. How do they do off schedule throws? How do they do when their game plan doesn't work? To me, these guys are the trapeze artists at the circus. Sure, they put on a fun show, but if you take that net away, my golly, they're not going to do well.
That may very well be the case, but the reason Michigan beat Ohio State last year was they completely out-physicaled them, and that doesn't always show up on paper.
Yeah, no Ojabo, no Hutchinson though. That's the only thing that's concerning.
Fair. All right, Bill, what do you think?
I got to go with Bo on this one. I think that this is the peak. This is as much profit as you're going to wring out of Michigan. Michigan is not a championship caliber team. They, if they stumble sideways into the top 4, they're just going to get embarrassed by Alabama. So yeah, I'm selling Michigan. Sorry, I know khakis are never not in style for IT guys. But yeah, no.
Fair enough, but what I'm hearing from you guys is this is a classic short.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Fair. All right. Well, my number 4 is Ohio State.
yeah, same. I mean, yeah, if I'm going to sell Michigan at 3, I'm probably going to buy Ohio State at 4 because I think they should be 3.
All right. Jess?
This to me would be a slight strangle. So you have the strip where you go slightly bearish. You have the straddle where you're taking both sides. Strangle is where you take a little bit of upside on it. I do like Ohio State. I think right now with who they face, they've proven to be the most efficient offense. My question is who they've really faced in that regard. I'm not a very big believer in their defense compared to literally everybody else in that top 3 tier of us and the Bulldogs of Georgia. So.
All right, Bill?
Yeah, Ohio State's a slight buy for me right now. They're one of those teams that they could explode in the back half of the season and just go on a rampage like a wild beast, but then hit the Final Four and just face plant against an Alabama or a Georgia. But right now, today is what you're asking me about. So today, I am buying Ohio State, slightly buying Ohio State, cautiously buying Ohio State.
Okay. So that concludes the easy portion of this segment. So I've got right now for 5 through 10, there are 6 slots. I have 10 teams that I'm considering for these slots. And believe me, I have been shuffling those a lot over the last 2 days. I'd have this little spreadsheet up on my desk at work, and I'll go do some work, draw a design, look over, flip a couple of teams, go do something, answer an email, go back, flip a couple more teams. And so I'm not saying I don't feel confidence in that. I'm confident in everything I do. But yeah, there's a big bundle right here. And we're going to start this bundle at number 5 with Ole Miss. Tell me what you got. Jess, let's start with you.
This is a bare put. Nope. I mean, I have them at 9. I don't buy that defense. I don't buy their pass game against really all that great of teams. I think they can beat smaller teams, and it's honestly like the poor man's Ohio State in terms of their capabilities. I think that those two schools are very different offensively, but in terms of output collectively, that's what it reminds me of. Great offense. They're going to beat the teams they should, but are they going to punch above their weight or at least equal footing weight? To me, I don't think they do. I think they'll beat Kentucky, but I don't think it'll be pretty.
Fair. All right, Bo.
I gotta agree with Jess. I would sell Ole Miss at 5 if I had. I just don't see them being a top 5 team. Mainly because they haven't played anybody yet. So if they beat Kentucky, then we can talk. But as of right now, I'm going to sell it.
That's fair. Bill?
Since we're looking at this from a finances and financial standpoint, I'm gonna say Ole Miss reminds me of one of those tech companies from the late 80s or early 90s that had a world-beating idea for an operating system or computer technology, and only propeller head nerds like me remember it and obsess over what might have been, where they had all the cool ideas and all these great engineers and a little bit of startup money, and they released a few thousand units, and then the thing just face planted. And we are right where we were when we started with Microsoft and Apple and nobody else.
So you're calling Ole Miss OS2?
I'm calling Ole Miss OS2. I'm calling them Amiga OS. I'm calling them the next gen processor. They have some great elements, but they just don't have the marketing and they don't have the push behind them. Lane, bro, I love you to death. I would sit down and play some GameCube with you any day of the week. I'm sorry. Ole Miss is a strong sell. I'm clearing out Ole Miss right now.
Yeah, I had them there, and I've moved them, and I moved them back, and I can't. They're a volatile stock. I'll put it that way.
Yeah.
All right. Well, my number 6 right now it's on the strength of their running game, is Penn State. Let that one sink in for a minute before everybody's thinking really hard about this one.
This is kind of mid. I'll say this is almost a straddle. Maybe have a few more options that are bearish, but I'm a big fan of what they're doing defensively. Not sort of what they can do offensively. Granted they blew out Auburn. I didn't like how they started that game, and you know that if they had not, it's going to sound redundant like a football cliche, but it's true. If they had not been able to sustain that, do you really trust James Franklin's play calling at the end of games? I don't. He's a Scooby-Doo villain where you reveal the villain at the end. So it's slightly negative, but I trust their defense to get a stop. I think that's one of the more underrated units in the league right now defensively, because right now above them, in terms of defense, I have Minnesota 4, us at 3, Georgia at 2, and Iowa at 1. So
Yeah, I would hold Penn State at 6 right now. Oh, I haven't seen enough. Part of the problem is from 5 to 15, you just pick names out of a hat, you know? I mean, so
Trust
yeah,
me,
just
I know.
I'll hold at
I've been
6.
trying to come up with this all week. Well,
Yeah.
I've been trying to come up with this for 4 weeks now. So it it's tough this year. That
Yeah.
5 to 15, it is. What do you think about that, Bill?
Penn State, I'm holding them for now, but come on, everybody at this table knows that they're going to the Kiss Your Sister Doesn't Matter Bowl in late December. We all know that. So as far I'll hold them right now, but I'm not sticking them back in the filing cabinet. That one is laying on the desk till I can get it over to the broker. So
Okay. Well, my number 7 is Tennessee. Bo, what do you think?
Um, my gut tells me that's too high. My gut tells me to sell, but if I had Tennessee at 7, I'd probably just hang on to it and let's see what happens the next couple of weeks. Because I just don't know. They have an offense that can score points. If their defense comes together, then they could do some damage. But I don't know. So
hold. Bill, what do you think?
Geez, I don't hold. I mean, the East is a soup right now, except for Georgia. Georgia is a granite pebble in the bottom of the bowl of soup. But if you look at the predictorator, and I don't know how much credit you guys do or do not give the percentage chance to win, the FPI model that ESPN uses. Tennessee is one of 2 teams that is anywhere out of absolute, are you kidding me, percentage numbers against Alabama. That gives me pause. So I'm going to say that schlocky top, I will hold them firmly. I leave them where they are right now.
All right, and Jess?
So this is a team I have number 10 overall. As mentioned, this is kind of like an inverse Penn State team, except more extreme. Number 5 in offense for me behind us, Oklahoma, Georgia, Ohio State. Defense, I have them at number 50. Let's talk about who else is around them at number 50, by the way. You have Texas Tech at 49, UCLA at 48. Go on the other side, you have Tulane, 51, and Troy at 52. And there is no reason for their defense to be this bad. You know how many underclassmen are starting for them currently on defense?
No.
1. Christian Charles at cornerback.
Yeah.
That's it. They have nobody in their front 7. Well, I mean, even if you count McDonald, who's really more, he plays more of the star, but and including their Leo position where Byron Young plays, not our Byron Young, a different one, but their front 7 is all upperclassmen. There is no reason for this. If any of their guys goes out, their youngest guy at defensive tackle behind Curlin Garland is Bryson Eason, a redshirt sophomore. They have guys who have been in this program forever. There is no reason for them to be this bad defensively. And if you can't get stops when you're playing high-scoring games, because that's how football goes now, you're not going to win. Football is a game of drive and opportunity. And if your drive opportunities are constantly playing catch-up, with no chance to really try to grasp an edge, there's only so long that can not only go against you, but what it means for your defense going forward. Your offense is not always going to be able to produce. I love their offense, don't get me wrong. It really is spectacular. I've been big on Hooker the entire year. Jabari Small has been great in their backfield. Their receiving core between McCoy, especially Hyatt, Tillman, you talk about them. Great threesome right there. Great. Mincy's been great, really, as a transfer. Their weak side tackle. Cooper Mays has been pretty solid as well. But there just isn't enough. I don't trust them to get a stop. And it's the same story, but again, in reverse. You would ask James Franklin to call an offensive play. Are you really calling Josh Heupel to really, really get a stop? I mean, they run a 4-2-5. They're trying to be cute with the down linemen, but they're going to get beat in the air by Bennett. They're going to get beat in the air by Young. They're going to struggle with a lot of the stuff like Kentucky runs. You run an air raid, but you know you can do that. It's great, but it's not enough. Your 4-2-5 needs to have more of an answer up front than they do. I don't trust them up front. I don't trust them consistently to beat offensive lines. And that's going to cost them one of these games where they're going to lose like 54-51. And it's going to be really crazy, but they will. And people are going to wonder, oh, what happened to their defense? They just don't get stops. They don't jam at the line. They're technically sound, but they don't have the skill personnel. The real risk with them, right? Because Hooken's a grad guy. They have so many guys going out that you wonder how long this can sustain. And this is a very short honeymoon for Heupel. I like this team in the abstract, and I say abstract, it's Tennessee. I can't really enjoy them because I genuinely do get physically sick of that orange. But I really do. I have to look away every time I turn their games on. But,
so what you're saying is this defense doesn't cut the mustard?
No, it doesn't. No.
Thank you.
You know, do they have a 57 on their team? No, they don't have someone who wears 57 who's part of their regular depth strings, I don't believe, which is unfortunate.
All right. Well, okay. Before we get to number 8, just so you guys know, Tua was stretchered off the field with head and neck injuries in the first half of their game against Cincinnati.
Jesus. How awful. How awful.
So we'll see how that goes. I'll keep an eye on the news. Now back to our regularly scheduled rankings. My number 8, and this is where we get weird, guys. Right now, my number 8 is Minnesota, who's coming out of nowhere.
Sure, why not?
Bye.
Sure, yeah.
Solid buy. Buying Minnesota at 8.
Yeah.
Big buy. I like them a lot more than a lot of the posters and a lot of the metrics do. I have them at 6. I think they're a well-rounded team. Maybe not quite as elite offensively, but it's still, I think, a borderline top 15 offense and a top 5 defense. If I don't want to see the playoffs expand, but they're one of a few teams that I would, I can't say in favor, but I wouldn't be opposed to if you included them, if that makes sense. Because they're
makes
fun.
sense. I've looked at what they've done. I've seen the metrics. I haven't gotten to see them play yet, but they're beating some teams right now that at the beginning of the season we're like, that's not really much. But you look at what they've done so far, they've beaten a couple teams that actually aren't half bad. So I feel better about Minnesota number 8 because I had several teams.
I don't think that was the reception that John was expecting.
And that have actually been in the top 10 at different points in the season so far.
Yeah.
And I put in Minnesota. But I'll tell you what, my number 9, I take pleasure in this one. I'm going to call this my protest. This ranking is my protest vote. And I'm just hoping they back me up and don't let me down. My number 9 is NC State.
I don't know enough about NC State.
I don't trust them. They've played close margins. They're a fun team to watch the same way that Kansas is fun to watch. I can't rank them that high. They wouldn't rank my first, the top 25. I question who they've beaten and how they've beaten them in close games that I don't think is sustainable. And do I hope they do it this weekend?
And you're talking about the close win at East Carolina too, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's the kind of thing that really, really concerns me because East Carolina, for context, is my number 63 in the country, sandwiched between Arizona State and Army. So,
all right. And Bill, what do you think about NC State at number 9?
Oh, I'm not buying NC State at 9. I'd take one of the service academies over them in that spot. Yeah, they're sell. Sorry.
And you, Bo?
No, sell that. I don't trust NC State at all.
Well, okay, that's fair. But let me tell you before we go to number 10 that there are 4 teams on the outside of the top 10 looking in. I have Kentucky out there. I've got Oklahoma State out there. Both of those have been in the top 10 at different points this season. Also Washington. And you know what? One of the reasons I put NC State there is now Clemson is outside of my top 10 because my number 10 right now is USC.
No, that's wrong.
I don't
think
buy
that's wrong.
Not just maybe. No, you're wrong.
It's just no, just the Washington is better than USC. Okay, and we'll find out because I think.
I am looking forward to the day that Washington gets into the top 10.
Yeah.
And
don't forget, Washington is still the last Pac-12 team to make the playoff, and then Bo Scarborough did his thing.
Yes.
So, is anybody buying USC?
No.
No.
Is anybody holding USC?
No.
Okay. But, okay, Bill, you got your wish. Clemson's out. We don't have to talk about it.
Woohoo!
So that's my top 10, guys. Thanks for playing.
And thank you as always, Big John. That is your top 10, guys. That is your stock picks for the week, because we love some stonks around these parts. So the coming week, guys, we play our first, in my opinion, serious conference test. We are on the road, where let's be completely honest with one another. Bryce does not do great on the road. However, their pass defense is hot garbage. And if Bill O'Brien runs the ball up the gut on the first 2 plays after kickoff when we take possession, I will hop a Delta Dash to Arkansas and assault him in the gosh darn booth. We need to be throwing the ball at every opportunity. Throw the ball. The only time I want to see guys taking handoffs from snaps is garbage time. If we go air raid on these guys, we can just turn it into a circus. I think they've got some serious air defense problems, and as long as we stick to that tactic, I am predicting 42-17 is my call for the Arkansas game. Anyone else? Jess?
Yeah, so let me just run something real quick with this. I have my thoughts about this. I think the offensive line is going to be the biggest question to see how they can react in really a hostile environment. Can they step up to that? It'd be nice to see that. I have it right now being 38-21. That's subject to change, but 38-21 is my guess. I could see 41-21. It'll change by the end of the week when I run my formula and stuff more, but that's what I've come up with. I think Bryce shows what he's worth. I think we still have questions about the line a little bit. I think the run game in terms of like wheel routes shows itself off. I think they show Gibbs a little bit more. I think they feature the outside game a lot more because now that they have that and they know that they can run that efficiently, I think they run quick, but the line doesn't always have its best day. They go quick. They go deep a little bit less than I would like to see. I think the defensive line really imposes itself well, and the game is not as close as the final score shows. I think they get like a garbage time touchdown that leads basically our show off next week with, oh God, what is our second team doing? Do we have a future next year with them after Will and company leave?
So what are your thoughts about Arkansas putting 2 safeties deep and trying to keep everything underneath them and for this game so that we're going to end up having to run a lot more?
That's why I think. Well, at least logically, what you should do. I can't count on Bill O'Brien to do it. I think they're going to start to the outside a lot more. So eventually, you're going to have to bring those safeties down because if we're just going to throw boundary plays, we're going to throw swing passes. Because think about the play that we ran to Christian Leary last year, that little swing Heisman moment that Bryce had. So Think about that. So you bring this to the outside. Those safeties can't be that high up if you're going to bring it to the outside because they're not even doing anything at that point. That's just not good utilization of your players. You bring one of these guys down, and then it brings up that much opportunity for somebody like, I don't know, like your Pickens or somebody like that to really try to get open more. So we try to go against that type to try to play into its weakness because I don't think their line is that great. As much as ours isn't great, theirs isn't either. So play into their strength, basically. If they're going to give you that, we were in really good examples that we can play tempo, that we can play these little short outs, we can play these quick curls. Play that to open the game. And when that opens up, you're in business with beating one safety and putting the game away, I think, really midway through the second and maybe into the third. But I think mid-late second, it's going to be a sweet kiss of goodnight. Pork on the roast.
I think if they do that, Jahmyr Gibbs is going to get a lot of touches.
Oh yeah, big Gibbs day. Really early.
Yeah.
I don't think there's really a bet for this, but but put your thoughts on Gibbs getting really a lot of touches early, especially on the swing passes.
Yeah, and I hope we have some. Okay, I can't even remember the name of that route. Is it circle route where he starts out and cuts back in behind the linebackers? I can't remember the name of that route.
The wheel route?
You know what I'm talking about?
Or the Hicks?
Not the wheel route where he starts to the outside, cuts back into the middle between and behind the linebackers.
I could see a few for that. Depending on where he starts initially. I can't think of it right now. I know what you mean though.
But yeah, I could see us making some hay on that one as well, especially if those safeties stay deep.
Yeah, so I think Sue Pig gets roasted this weekend, and I agree with Jess. I think this game is over mid-second, so before halftime anyway. And the Arkansas secondary is so bad. I mean, they're just as good as I think that Arkansas can be. You're bringing Bryce Young against the worst secondary in almost worst secondary in the whole FBS. I saw the stat. It's like you include Division 2 and 3, and they're like number 620 out of 640.
Yep.
It's bad. Bryce Young may win his second Heisman against Arkansas. I don't know. So, but I was a little worried about Arkansas earlier in the year, but after I watched them play and seeing what's going on, I'm not as much anymore. Actually, I'm more worried about at this point in time, more worried about Tennessee than I am Arkansas. So,
yep,
agreed.
That's funny. I was worried about Tennessee until I saw them play Florida.
But it's Florida.
Tennessee, I'm worried about the cigar streak. I really am. I said that before the year. Bill was like, "Jess, what are you saying about that?" Like, it's like they're a good offense. Is that Tennessee? Tennessee's a scary team this year, guys. Y'all don't sleep on them because I'm not. Ugh.
Well, we'll get to Tennessee when we get to Tennessee, but I have a fun little announcement just in case you missed it earlier. That is you referring to our audience. The week during Tennessee Hate Week, which I think this is a fairly monumental thing, we will have our first show guest, Mr. Alabama Rewind himself, Bama Rewind. Sean will be on our show, and we're going to talk to him about his love of the team, his incredible archival work. Now, let me tell you something, folks. If you're a fan of college football, I mean most teams' college football, and you want to see a condensed game, and you can put up, for the most part, with your favorite team being beaten, go check out Bama Rewind on YouTube. He has a treasure trove of football games, and I don't just mean in Nick Saban's career. He's got everybody covered. He's got some stuff you won't find anywhere else, going all the way back to like the 46 Rose Bowl. Okay. But he's going to be joining us on the show the Thursday before the UT game. So I'm looking forward to that, and I hope everyone else is. We're gonna talk to him. We're gonna have a fine old time with Bama Rewind right here on the show, and that should be a whole lot of fun. So, any closing thoughts? Anyone? Table is open. Any final thoughts other than roll damn Tide?
Yeah, that's about it. Roll Tide.
We're gonna beat the hell out of you.
That's right.
Pregame. Yeah, but gotta say it.
Well, if I can't say roll tide, can I say rammer jammer yellow hammer?
Yeah.
Give him hell, Alabama.
This is permitted. All right. Well, thank you to our audience as always for listening. Nobody got this week's trivia question, which is, what is the current record for Alabama versus Arkansas? So if you think of it, if you know what it is, if you can take a stab at it and you think you're right, leave it in the comments under the video, and whoever gets it right gets the shout out next week when we do this whole crazy thing again. Everybody have a wonderful evening, and we'll see you next time. Peace, everyone.